All right, welcome to Fuck Your Life Up, a podcast about what happens when you blow up the life you had to build the one you actually want. Each week, we share updates from our own journeys, including flipping a house together, and have conversations with other life flippers about living without a blueprint and choosing freedom, even when it's fucking scary. I'm your host, and with me, as always, we've got Crystal and Katie. I'm going to actually take a pause here and let you guys say hi.
Well, hi.
Because I noticed in the other recordings when I went back and looked at them, I was like, I didn't let them even speak. But, you know, we're figuring it out as we go, right? Like, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
And then also, I wanted to make sure we're emphasizing the fuck your life up, right? The whole point of this is we're trying to like take control of our lives and make things better, right? So I'm going to try to do that more as well. But anyways, today we're going to talk about our life updates. I know in the past we kind of went through our histories with the previous episodes. Now we're going to get into what we're each doing on an individual level and then talk about how to identify a property. So for my personal update, basically after I quit the zoo, there was this retirement money that is sitting there teasing me saying, you're not going to get to use me until 55 and a half or whatever it is. And I said, nope, I can't have that. So found this great program called ROBS. It's a rollover for business startup. Usually it's for startups, but the problem with the startup is, I don't know what the statistics are. It's really hard to get off the ground and be successful in the first couple of years. So I found a program where I can actually use that money to be able to acquire a business. Business acquisition is just, it's very unregulated. It's the wild, wild west, basically, of purchasing something. So there's really no representation you absolutely have to have, like as far as a broker or anything. There's nobody overlooking it from the government. It's really just a private transaction. So when I was thinking about things that I could do, it seemed natural to me to roll into something in animal care space, right? Because that's all of my experience. But after doing that for a while, I was getting that little thing in my stomach that I had when I was still working at the zoo, which just made me feel like it was not the right direction. So my other love has always been interior design. And I just needed something that had some cash flow. That's the other thing too, is like real estate's stagnant, right? If you do a buy and hold, right? And I just didn't want to wait to be paid out. I needed that money month to month. And so home staging kind of came on my plate because it can be major cash coming in if you do it right. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm in the midst of talks with a couple different home stagers about acquiring their assets to be able to continue to stage homes for real estate.
So what does that mean? Their assets, obviously, like their couches and their coffee tables,
right.
But then their Rolodex of realtors that they've worked with, does that come with it?
Yeah. The client list is a big part of it. Certainly the physical assets, yes. Their processes are another part of the asset sale, like how they organize themselves. The actual movers, right, that they already have relationships to be able to do these jobs. All of that stuff is what I'd be purchasing. The name, the branding, and all of that is a little bit less valuable to me because I want to change it, since it's literally, they're all kind of individual tailored to their companies or their names or their whatever their branding is. And I'm going to want to make it special and unique to me. So, but there is some.
You have a list of names. I'm not going to make you share them right now, but you have a list.
Yeah, I do. And I really want this one name. So certain businesses might not make sense to change their name if they have a strong standing in the market. But this one, I feel like I could change it, and I don't think it'd make that big of a difference with me getting clients. So yeah, so that's where I'm at right now.
That is so cool. Yeah. Sam, I think I can't wait to follow this journey because I didn't ever realize that you could, number one, like use your retirement money to buy a business. Like this is really valuable information for people. I never knew that. And then number two, like watching you go through this process of buying something, it's funny because it's a lot like buying real estate in many ways.
It is,
but totally different. So I'm so fascinated by this process and I can't wait to follow it.
Well, I think
I feel like I want to dig into it, and maybe not now, but to find out how do people tap into their retirement money, use it to buy a business and not get penalized and get the best rates. And like, that's like a whole nother rabbit hole, right?
Let's do a whole episode on what you've learned.
I could go into it for sure. Yeah. Because otherwise you got the capital gains, blah, blah, blah. So this way it's something that you can use now, right? Instead of waiting, and hopefully make yourself more wealthy in the process. That's the hope. We'll see. But I mean, Crystal, you are a realtor. You deal with stagers, right? So this might be a good way to kind of segue into how's the real estate market going right now? What's your update?
Yeah. So, okay, I've been in real estate. This is my 3rd year now, which is weird because it's flown by. And I got into real estate in beginning of 2022, which was like the hottest market ever. My first listing had 44 offers, and it went like 400, 500,000 over asking. Like, this was my first listing. So, which was such great luck and so much fun. But somebody did say to me,
hello.
and so much money. Right.
Yeah.
But somebody did say to me, it's not always like this. Like, don't get used to this. Which is true because, there've been ups and downs, which I knew was going to happen. And I would say last year was a really good year. And this year's been slower, which is not news to anybody. Like, the real estate market has been slow, because of interest rates and because of tariffs, and financially people are, I think, kind of sketched out. Everybody feels like everybody's very unstable in the whole country, right? Nobody wants to like make a big move and then not know what's going to happen because the country feels weird. And then on top of it, in LA, the job market in LA has struggled. There've been a lot of layoffs for people in the entertainment industry. So what I'm seeing is, that the market has been slower this year, which is okay because I know that it's going to pick back up. I've done this long enough to know that there are going to be ups and downs. And that's part of why I wanted to get into real estate investing, because I didn't want my income or my self-worth or my busyness to be just tied to all these external factors outside of me. Because even in busy markets, you're sort of, you can't force somebody to sell their house, or you can't force somebody to buy a house, so that lack of control in many ways, the way that I'm coping with it is by getting into real estate investing. So I did that last year. I flipped the house last year, had a great experience, learned so much. And that's been my focus a lot this year, as well as like gearing up for that, and reaching out to the people that I know want to work with me, and taking meetings with people and finding out who has money, who has connections, where can we get the ball rolling on this. So that's what's kept me busy this year, really, is real estate. I still have active deals and active listings, but also wheeling and dealing.
Yeah. And using the skills that you have to kind of carve a niche, right? Like, because it could be really easy to just, say that's what the market forces are, and I'm just going to have to roll with it. Or you can try to, a lot of people get rich when things slow down because they're thinking outside of the box. So
that's right.
So I see that like in our future.
Crystal might have this weird spidey sense that we're not tapping into, or that I'm not tapping into. And the spidey sense that I'm referring to is the fact that, you're going to be able to know when this job market gets better or worse in the entertainment industry, specifically in Los Angeles, because that's your market. If you start seeing a bunch of people putting their houses up for sale because they're running for Vegas and Phoenix because they've given up on this job market, you need to let me know, because that means I've got a better shot to put in my resume.
Yeah, that's right. Or maybe you have to move, Katie. I don't know.
Or maybe I need to go with them.
I'll be like, Katie, this is where everybody's going. Let's go.
There are so many people, though, that left at COVID and now they're regretting it, from what I'm hearing. So there's people will always want to live in this weather. People will always want to live close to the ocean. That's why I think, to your point, it will be okay. There might be some slight corrections, but I think that we're going to be fine.
If I didn't, and I say this to buyers, and I believe it, and it's the truth. If I didn't believe in the LA real estate market, I wouldn't be looking to buy a house right now. I believe in it. We have a very proven market. We have, fantastic historical gains, year on year. So, I think we're going to be okay. And that's why this year I'm really hustling. This is a good year to get a deal, because I really believe that there's money to be made.
Yeah. Cool. Well, speaking of layoffs, Miss Katie, how's it been going?
It's been interesting. So I've been, as I tell my friends and family, I've been scrolling on LinkedIn, which is where hopes and dreams go to die. That is not the way to find a job. I have figured that out myself. They just post up these job postings, and you can see that over 600 people have already applied for the job. So unless you legit know the hiring manager, you're not able to get jobs this way anymore. It really is word of mouth and going out there and networking and having coffees and sending the email, and then sending the follow-up email 6 to 8 weeks later, and then sending another follow-up email another 6 to 8 weeks later. So it's really all about keeping up these relationships and just hoping that something's going to pop up in the market. And hopefully the hemorrhaging of the layoffs is going to stop, because that's the problem right now. Is you have this market that is overly saturated with rock stars, like really good, legit, qualified people, my peers. So it's been weird navigating the job application process, the job interview process. I had a job interview the other week. I was so stoked. I was like, oh, great. This recruiter dropped me a note and said, let's go ahead and talk about this role. And it was one of those, I call it the white men not qualified rule, meaning there's so many, no, and I mean it not in a bad way, but they say that typically a white privileged man will apply for a job even if he only hits 50% of the markers on what they're asking, whereas a woman really waits until she ticks every box. And if she doesn't tick all, the 100%, she's like, I don't know, I probably shouldn't apply for it.
Yeah.
And the rule of thumb should be, as long as you check off 70% of the boxes, go for it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one of those ones where I'm like, oh yeah, not only did I tick off 70%, but I was more around 80%. So, but still you kind of go in with that imposter syndrome. Yeah. And I got a call from the recruiter and I was totally stoked. I was like, oh my gosh, my white man energy is really vibing. And within 2 minutes of the interview, she's like, hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We already have a candidate that we're drawing up a contract for, but we realized we never did our due diligence and interviewed other candidates for the role. So I kind of just need to chat with you to make sure that we haven't left any stones.
You're a tick in their box. That's
yeah. Dude, I did full hair and makeup because it was an on-camera interview. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, that being said, the recruiter was lovely. I really liked her. We vibed. And so I feel like I've made a connection. She'll be hearing from me in 6 to 8 weeks. But, just a lot of that type of shenanigans is going on in the job market today.
Yeah, well, I'm so sorry.
So crushing.
Yeah, that's awful.
Hair and makeup, you guys.
I know. I know. Well, this is why, I wanted to bring you into our little coven, right? Is that we can at least, in your downtime, when you're not applying for jobs, we can be looking for real estate, right? And that's been a focus here for us for the last few weeks. And we wanted to give you guys an update on that and kind of give you some of our experiences and what to look for if it's something that you think that you would be interested in doing. So given that Crystal is our real estate guru and has actually done a flip before, I was hoping that, you could go into a little bit of what that experience was like for you, some key takeaways, and obviously you want to do it again. So it worked out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, full disclaimer, I'm not an expert, but I'm going to share what I have learned.
Yeah.
So because why not? Because people are here to listen. And I think also this process of flipping a house, all the ins and outs, the nitty gritty is so complex. So I think we should tease, I think we're going to do a full episode where I give you maybe share more information about this.
Yeah.
But here's what I've learned on the last deal. It's actually pretty easy to find money. And it's actually pretty easy to find a contractor and get the work done. The hardest part of this process is finding the deal. And when I say the deal, I mean finding the house. And so, last time, from when I set out to flip a house to when I found a house, it was about a year. And that's partially because I don't have all the systems in place that a lot of other experienced investors have in place, but it's essentially just me. But that's the first thing that I learned is this process is going to take a while. And it's because you can't just buy the first rundown house or like the first ugly house that you see. The deal has to make sense because we're using hard money. We'll go into this more later, but essentially we have to find a house that we can get for the right price, put in the right amount of money to fix it, and then sell for the right amount of money. So that's what you buy it for when it's neglected, when it's a deeply, neglected property that's the purchase price. What you sell it for, or what you could sell it for, is called the ARV, the after rehab value. So there's this sort of formula that you have to work, and you kind of work backwards. So you've got to look for houses that, let's say if you buy it for $1 million and you put in 300,000, that you can sell for 1.6 million,
Mm-hmm.
So it's all
so
about
is that kind of the rule of thumb? If you put in whatever you put in and you used that, we would put in, it was $1 million. So you put in 300, that you have to make double whatever you put in.
So the actual mathematic equation, they call it the 70% rule. So you take the ARV,
which in this case, the imaginary case was 1.6.
I don't want to do the math.
I'm not going to do the math.
I don't want to do the math live because I can't. But let's say it's some amount, right? You take 70% of that minus the cost that you're going to pay to rehab. Okay, so let's say your ARV is $1 million. Let's do it with easy numbers. The ARV is $1 million. 70% of that would be 700,000. That's not your purchase price. If you're going to put 100,000 in to fix it, then your purchase price should be 600,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's much easier to.
Okay, so the amount in at the end should be 70%.
So it's 70% minus rehab cost, if that makes sense. So we could buy a house for 600,000, put 100,000 into it, and sell it for $1 million, and that would be a successful deal. That's okay. On average. My last deal was more. It was probably 75 or 80. So it was probably a little bit more, and I still made money. But the reason that the 70% rule is important is because lenders will look at this. So if we identify a house and then we go to all of our hard money contacts and say to them, look, we can buy it for 600,000. All it needs is 100,000 in rehab. We can sell it for $1 million. They're going to say, check, we're happy to fund you. So that's the sticky part. We can't just go on our gut feeling, like, look at this cool house.
Yeah.
Because it has to financially make sense. It's not only how we'll get funding, but it's also how we'll walk away with money at the end.
So then to identify that, you said, again, so you go into a neighborhood and you kind of have to look at like the comps, right? To see what recent flips have gone for in purchase. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Not just recent flips, just recent sales. So, we go and see, like, this is a house that's totally dialed in, it's been renovated. It's beautiful. This is how much a comp in this neighborhood would sell. And then we have to start looking in that neighborhood for what we can find there and what we can get a deal on. And that's the hardest part because that spread is huge. So, there's all of these different methods that we can go into more, but that's kind of where we're at in the process. There's people called wholesalers, and their whole job is to find deals for investors, get it under contract, meaning offer money to the seller, get it under contract, and then sell that contract to an investor, because they have all of these systems. They're very skilled at finding deeply discounted properties. So,
right. And then they take a piece off the top for themselves.
And then they take a piece off the top. They'll take charity. 20, yeah, they're not doing a charity. They'll take, literally in like 10 days, they can make like 20K. They just spin it. They'll charge 20K or 30K as an assignment fee. So I have all of this network of wholesalers. And then there's a lot of other things we can do too, like what's called driving for dollars. Like if we know a neighborhood that we like, that we know has a good ARV, we can just drive around and look for properties that look like they may, be neglected, and that maybe their seller, their owner wants to sell. And that's kind of what we did in my neighborhood, or kind of what I did in my neighborhood, just by nature of of living in the neighborhood, I saw this property that I believed was, abandoned, and used my realtor tricks to track down the owner. And so right now, like, our hottest lead on a property is actually this house in my neighborhood, which has been quite a saga because we've been trying to track down the owner. I've been talking to the owner, trying to convince him to sell to me. So that's kind of what we've been doing a lot. So we've got this house in my neighborhood. It's a big if we can get this. So in the meantime, we're doing all these other things, talking to all the wholesalers. And then I think one of the next steps that we're going to do is mail out a farm, meaning we're going to send out a letter to people in this neighborhood saying, we're looking to potentially buy a house. Do you want to sell
Crystal,
to us?
I've got a question going back to the driving for dollars. All right. So if someone's like, oh, great, I'm going to drive around and I'm going to look for a beat up, dilapidated property. It doesn't have to be like the spooky house on the block with like the shingles hanging off, right? It just needs to look like, hey, they haven't painted in a while and there's a good chance the interior is like from 1956. Is that what I'm understanding? Or are we thinking, no, this is where squatters live? Like, what level do you eyeball when you're driving for dollars?
Yeah, there's some nuance there because it could be like an original house like in LA and in my neighborhood. There's a lot of mid-century homes that have been updated since maybe the 80s. Maybe they were built in the 50s. They didn't update in the 80s. They may look bad to us visually, but it's probably not enough for our purposes. We really need something that's pretty bad in order to get a good enough price, right?
Right.
That's
and
the
then
key.
And then you're hoping that it's not so bad that there's so many surprise expenses, right? That it'll just eat into your budget, right?
Right.
I mean,
yeah. So there's this give and take. Yeah. But the worse it looks, the better for us, to be honest. Like, we want it to look like real shit.
Yeah. Well,
weeds growing.
What's nice about the one in your neighborhood is it's helped us kind of run it through the pipes, right? That it gave us numbers to go off of. We have our down payment. We can get pre-qualification letters from lenders on our hard money loans to make sure that, are we thinking about this correctly? Like, this could actually work. But there's always the unknowns, right? And so that's we have to accept that. Like, it could be, there could be the ceiling coming through. Like, you just don't know.
Right. And then on this particular deal, that house, the math is mathing. So we're sort of using this, this sort of math equation, to look elsewhere. And it's also based a lot on my last deal because the numbers were very similar on my last deal. Right. That's kind of the number we're comfortable with. And, we
already have the spreadsheet. So that's why we're going for it.
That's right. Crystal is the master of spreadsheets.
Yeah. We've got a spreadsheet. We also have a set amount. Like, we don't have unlimited resources to buy a more expensive house. That's the other piece. So like, our house really, whatever we buy really needs to be well below $1 million. We can't go and there are neighborhoods where we can find distressed properties that are more, but because of how much we collectively have for a down payment, we need to stay in a lower amount.
Right. Wow. Well, I'm really excited about this. We even have other ideas about real estate that we could definitely get into in another episode. But but I think that's a good wrap up for now. As we go through this, obviously, we'll give you guys updates in future episodes. But on this next episode, we're going to bring in an expert. Her name is D-Lisa. She's a dream doula. Have you guys heard about D-Lisa?
Yeah. I'm very intrigued.
Yes. So
I've been dreaming about her.
Right. She is going to help us discuss her own life reinvention. She's also going to talk to us about how the wisdom of your dreams can help you also fuck your life up. So follow us on F Your Life Up podcast on all social media platforms and send us any questions to fyourlifeuppod@gmail.com. Thanks. See you guys.